So Sony has now responded to Phil Spencer's comments about the Xbox One X being in a league of its own. In case you missed that video yesterday, you can go check it out after this one. But real quick, I'll cover it for you again. Phil Spencer told Eurogamer, quote, "I look at Pro as more of a competitor to S than I do the Xbox One X. This is a true 4K console. If you just look at the specs of what this box is, it's in a different league than any other console that's out there. When I think about techniques to somehow manufacture a 4K screen like some other consoles try to do, this is different than that." And then he goes on to repeat, 40% more GPU and more RAM and all that. Now, some people were upset with me because they said, well, Phil wasn't really taking a dig at the PS4 Pro. I mean, Phil's just a good guy, and he would never say anything bad about the Pro. I don't know how you could read that comment and interpret it as anything other than a dig at the PS4 Pro. I mean, that's amazing to me that some people walked away hearing that and thought that Phil was saying really nice things about the Pro right there. It would be like Sony claiming that you can't compare the Xbox One to the PS4 because you should instead compare it to the PS3. I mean, they're both mid-generation upgrades. I do think they're very comparable. I don't agree with Phil's statements, but he's trying to sell a product, so I understand why he would say it. Sony was asked about this particular comment, and here's what Jim Ryan said when asked about the quality difference between Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Quote, "I'm not going to go into detail of what's embedded into individual contracts with publishing partners." Which, this is just my take on it, it sounds like there's a possibility there could be clauses, at least for certain games, that require parity between the platforms. Not saying that is the case. He's not saying that's the case. He's just saying he's not going to go into it, which leaves open the door of possibility. He goes on to say, what I would do is cast our minds back to the PS3 generation, where we had on paper more impressive specifications than our competition, and in some areas by quite a considerable margin. Now, that didn't play out the way we anticipated it would, and this has nothing to do with co-marketing deals. This is just general developer and publisher dynamics. What happened was the developers, maybe at the behest of publishers, developed up to the lowest common denominator and stopped there, and in very few cases took advantage of the additional horsepower of the PS3. Now, I'm a big believer of learning lessons from history. History doesn't always repeat itself, but if you're a publisher of video games, this is a perfectly commercially rational approach for you to take, because you only do one set of work. You don't do one set of work to get up to one level and then a different amount of work, and consequently may need to go even further, talking about going on and getting better hardware to run better. So it's almost like he's implying the Xbox One X may not see the extra benefit over the Pro in many cases, because the PS4 Pro may be holding the Xbox One back, because they think devs will most likely develop for the least common denominator in most cases. Now, Phil Spencer has already responded to this idea that Xbox One X could be held back in the form of at least marketing deals. So this is the way. He wasn't talking about developers developing for the lowest common denominator, as Jim Ryan was, but he was asked, what about if there's marketing deals that keep Xbox One X from reaching its full potential? And here's what he said, quote, "I'll just say I don't know anything about other development deals. You mentioned some things around clauses and stuff that I don't know anything about, but if anybody was to do a deal to hold back technical innovation on a video game anywhere else, that doesn't feel good for the industry to me." So the question for you today in the comment section, post below, will the Xbox One X be held back because of PS4 Pro? And I actually brought this question up a few weeks ago whenever it was still called Scorpio. I said, is Xbox One X going to be held back by less powerful hardware? And honestly, I think the answer is yes, at least in some cases. And I'm not even talking about being held back by Sony and PlayStation. I'm talking about, I think this thing is going to be held back not because of marketing deals, but also because of the Xbox One as well. At least when it comes to frame rate. And I think we're already seeing some cases that I'm going to go over in an upcoming video talking about, you know, the price difference with the X and the Pro, and if it's worth that price difference, and if it's worth you upgrading. So I'm going to cover all that in an upcoming video, but I do think this is going to be held back, at least in some areas, to weaker hardware. So stay right here to this channel and videogamesandnews.com, as well as follow me on Twitter to stay up with the latest gaming headlines. That does it for me, the Red Dragon. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.
Are you listening? Damn.